What's up guys, it's All Day Anthony. Welcome back to the Civic vlog that you hopefully know and hopefully love. And in today's video, I'm gonna show you how I paint and install a new front lip. Let's get started. Alright, so recently I picked up a new front lip for my Honda Civic over here. And by new, I mean gently used, and by gently used, I mean really used. So what I ended up finding was a 99 to 2000 Honda Civic Si OEM front lip. Now this is something that I've been looking for quite some time now. I know a lot of people love the eBay Type R replica lip that I have on there, but to be honest, the fitment isn't great on that, and my paint on there has seen some better days. So when I stumbled across this OEM EM1 lip, I knew I had to have it. Now, fortunately for me, this thing is already in Milano Red, but unfortunately, you can see it is extremely beat up here on the bottom, and it is rock chipped to all hell. So what I want to do is I want to completely refinish this front lip and make it look like brand new. Now I have a handful of supplies that we're going to be using today for the paint and the install, so I'm going to show you what I picked up and get started on this. Alright, so I have everything laid out that I'm going to be using today to repaint this front lip over here. Now, if you guys saw my previous painting vlog, it was more of a learning experience for me where I painted my door and my front lip and all of that, and it didn't turn out perfect, hence why I wanted to go into this with a little bit more experience and a little bit more knowledge, especially having the right tools for the job. Some people would call this overkill, but again, I want to do this the right way so this lip looks as good as it possibly can and still keep it relatively cheap. Now for reference, I took this down to a body shop to see how much it would cost to actually sand everything down and respray it and do all of that stuff, and they wanted to charge me a couple $100, whereas all this stuff here was a little under $100, and I'll be able to do this myself and hopefully still have a similar finish. So what I have here is several different grits of sandpaper with some sanding blocks, some sanding discs if I need to use those since I'm doing this by hand, and then I have some plastic filler there that I'm going to be filling some of those gouges with and getting that nice and leveled and looking good. I have a couple little Bondo scrapers here, some drop cloths, a tack cloth, and then of course the most important part, the paint. So what I went with was an SEM primer. It's basically a flexible primer. It already has the flex additive in there, so it's meant for plastic bits. It'll also help fill scratches and things like that, and it is also sandable. So this is kind of like an all-in-one, and SEM makes really, really good stuff. Next up, I went to my local Napa and actually had this color made for me. So they did a direct color match to my bumper, so I know this will be pretty much spot on. Fingers crossed it'll be spot on, but I had this made and I want to say it was around 20 bucks. So if you have a local paint supply place, they'll be able to actually make you an aerosol can of your exact color for pretty cheap. Now, if you don't have any of those around you, I'll try to find an Amazon link down below to where you'll be able to find something color matched as well. Now, the most important part here is going to be the SprayMax 2K Clear. Now, this is a two-part clear coat where you actually have to activate it by taking this cap off and putting it in there. So it has hardener in it and all that kind of stuff to where it'll be able to withstand everything that nature throws at it. My problem last time is I only did 2 light coats of this spray clear coat on my front lip, and it got pretty chipped to hell. So the idea is I'm gonna go a little bit heavier with the clear this time, so rocks and things like that will actually be able to deflect off it pretty good. So what we need to start doing is sanding this thing down. This is gonna be extremely tedious and probably super boring, so I'm just gonna kind of jump to clip to kind of show you my process. So let's lay down some drop cloth and get started. All right, so since the sanding process is extremely tedious, like I was saying before, you want to make yourself comfortable. Fortunately, this lip is pretty small and shouldn't take super long. So I'm just sitting here on a stool. I lay down a drop cloth to pick up all that extra dust, and then I have more drop cloths for when we actually start painting. So again, it's just basically time to jump in here and get started. Now, I think that this lip was actually Plasti-Dipped before blue because there's still leftover Plasti-Dip in some of these little chips here and whatnot. So pretty much everything's gonna get sanded off. So I have 150 on here right now with a little bit of a sanding block. So let's see. Perfect, that's exactly what I was hoping for. I didn't want to have to drop down to 80 grit because it is just so much more aggressive and I don't want to have any of the deeper sanding scratches in there. So 150 here, the block itself is 180. So I'll roll with 150, knock it all down, jump up to 180 to kind of help it out since I only have so much sandpaper, and then I'll start going up a little higher as needed. So, and then for this over here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, before the primer, obviously fill this and sand that down to where it's nice and flat before we jump into the primer. So again, this is kind of another learning experience, but I have a little bit more knowledge jumping into this, so hopefully I get it right this time. Now, obviously, if you didn't already have a painted lip, you wouldn't need to do any of this. If it was a brand new polyurethane lip, honestly, you could just do a light sand and then get straight into primer after your flex additive, or use the same primer that I'm using with the flex additive, and then spray your base coat and spray your clear and call it good. This is, again, the most tedious part of this whole freaking thing. I may not be doing everything right. I'm sure there's some body shop guys that are watching that are like, holy crap, he's already done this wrong. I'm just learning. I'm just doing this myself. So if you do have any advice, leave it down in the comments. Maybe I'll apply it to the next time I try to do something, but hopefully, fingers crossed, this all turns out great. All right, quick update here. So I have so far gotten this far. I ended up jumping to 80 grit because I wasn't busting through the plastic and the gouges aren't as deep as what I thought they would be. So I am just mowing through this right now with 80 grit, and it's doing a pretty damn good job. And so looking good over here. I'm gonna go back over obviously with the 150. I might hit it with 180. And then I'll kind of start working on this. I'm gonna clean all this stuff up because obviously when you're sanding, everything starts getting filled in, so you can't see everything. So I'll be filling that back out. But so far so good. All the chips are kind of coming out, which is nice because those chips were pretty deep. And you don't realize how deep certain chips are until you start sanding with 80 grit and you're like, how are these still in there? So yeah, gonna keep going through, knocking it out. Again, it's just a tedious process.
A few moments later.
All right, so I've gotten a little bit further here. I'm just kind of moving along. Jason just stopped by for a minute. So what I've moved to is I've kind of got away from the block now. I'm starting to do hand sanding. So this stuff is good stuff, dude. Whatever this is, it's just a 180 grit, this purple 3M. It doesn't really collect dust as much, and I'm able to really kind of cut through a lot of these defects. And so the block worked great as far as just kind of mowing things down, but actually moving to just a hand sandpaper, I'm able to get kind of more into the contours here of the lip and remove all that old stuff. And so the idea is I'm not obviously trying to go down to bare plastic. I'm just trying to get it nice and flat and smooth, and eventually I'll get to the point where I'm going to just fill in this stuff with a little bit of that plastic filler and kind of go from there. So yep, let's keep going. All right, so we've moved inside for this next portion, which is gonna be the plastic filler to fill in all these deeper gouges here. So what I'm gonna do is take a little bit of this isopropyl alcohol here and with this microfiber towel, wipe it down. So that's cleaned up. These jack stands are the perfect height for this whole process here. And we're gonna go ahead and mix up our putty. So it says to do 1.5 inch size dot of the putty here. So we'll do, it looks about 1.5 inches. And it says to do 1/2 inch of the hardener next to it. Just gonna take this and then start mixing this up. Oh, that's stinky stuff, dude. All right, well, let's start filling, am I right? thing is I've always wanted to learn body shop stuff just to know how it works and just to learn it. I'm genuinely interested in it. I don't think I would ever be able to paint a car or anything, but just like small projects like this, I know like a body shop person watching this is probably like, oh dude, this is a walk in the park. But like for me, this is like, this is one hell of a project. I should have just been wearing gloves. I started realizing I had Bondo on my fingers and I was like, oh crap, I gotta go wash this off. And it was just kind of a pain to get off. So definitely recommend wearing some gloves. Yeah, like I said, this is weirdly therapeutic. This is, I don't know, something about doing this is just kind of fun. Never done it before. It's like a adult form of playing with Play-Doh. All right, so it's been about 20 minutes since I applied the Bondo, so it should be good to sand by now. So I'm gonna be using 240 grit here just on this block. It's already sanding nice and flat. Bondo does not taste good. But yeah, that filled in all those deeper gouges there. So I'm pretty stoked on that. Like I said, I think the one round will be good. And then once we finish it out with, I think 320 grit, and then we're gonna hit it with the primer. And then we should be golden, and then sand down the primer after a couple layers, and then we should be good for base coat and then clear. So hopefully this video is still entertaining. I'm hoping it's not super boring or anything like that, but yeah, let's keep going. All right guys, so I just finished up with the 240 with the block. Now I'm gonna go in by hand with the 320 here and just kind of clean it up. But this thing, dude, is buttery freaking smooth. Like I said, all these things were just filled in. So the only thing, I think I saw one gouge right here that I didn't really fill completely, but it's on the backside. So, you know, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know why I'm being so crazy about this, because like considering my door doesn't even match and there's plenty of dings and chips all over the car, I think this is just like a personal project that I'm wanting to do a good job on. I think that's what I can mock it up to. So go through the 320 now, knock it down, then we'll clean it up and it'll be ready for primer. Finally, we are ready to paint. So I got the lip here on the stands, laid down some cloths here because spray painting your garage can get pretty freaking messy, hence why I moved the Evo outside. So basically the plan is, I have up on some jack stands here, a little drop cloth, a little bit of a, I don't know what the hell that is, to kind of give me some leverage here. Now over here, I have the primer and the actual base coat kind of soaking in some lukewarm water. I learned the hard way last time, if it's below, 60 degrees, you can get some sputtering and stuff like that if the paint's not fully warmed up, so that kind of helps with that process. So the plan is, lip is here, it's prepped, it's ready to go. I've already wiped it down. There's no dust on it or anything like that. So I'm actually gonna be flipping it over and shooting it kind of like this here at the tops with primer, just to get the ends first. And then what I'm gonna do is flip it over and then we'll actually primer the whole thing. So I'm gonna start with pretty much a light-ish coat and then follow up with like a medium-ish heavy coat. I might even do 3 coats depending to how much I need to fill, because we are sanding down that primer after it settles. So I need to put enough on there to where I can sand it. Anyways, that's the plan. So we're gonna go ahead and grab the primer and get started. So I kind of covered this before, but this primer is pretty nice. So you need flex additive when it comes to spraying plastics, right? That plastic has to be able to flex once it's painted. And so typically you'd spray flex additive, then primer, then paint, then clear coat on an unpainted lip. But when it comes to a painted lip like I'm doing today, obviously I had to do all the prep work, and this is kind of like an all-in-one, so it has everything. And like I said before, SEM makes really good stuff, and I'm gonna make sure to include the links to all this stuff down in the description so you can do this yourself if you're wanting to tackle this kind of project. So flexible primer, freaking awesome. Super happy that this is a thing. We're gonna let this dry for just a little bit, and then we're gonna go over it with our second coat and possibly even a third coat. All right, so it's been about 35-ish minutes since laying the last coat of primer, so now we need to sand the primer down. Now I was gonna go in dry, but I decided to go in wet because it feels a little bit better. Get it? Get it? No. Anyway, so basically, I'm gonna be using 600 wet on here just to smooth it all out before the base coat. I'm gonna end on 600 wet, basically, dry it down with a microfiber towel, let it kind of air dry, and then we'll be able to hit the base coat. So I was gonna do this with a block, but I think that I'm gonna be better off just doing it just by hand here. So just a little bit of water solution here, well, a little bit of water in this bucket here, and I'll kind of show you what I'm gonna do. You can fold it over if you want to do it like this, but basically we're just going in and smoothing out the texture on this slip here. All right, so I just finished up with the wet sanding with the 600, and it's feeling super smooth. Now, unfortunately, I broke through a little bit here on the primer. I went a little bit too hard in the paint, as some would say. Okay, I gotta really stop with that. Basically, I can't go as hard next time, so I need to go a bit lighter because wet does cut faster than dry in this case. So anyways, we're just gonna go ahead and dry this down. Take a little microfiber towel here, get all this water and crap off of here. And I'm gonna actually hit that area with just a little more primer, just an itty bitty amount of primer. And then we'll move on to the next step here. All right, so here we go. I've been thinking about this for far too long, so I just need to do it. Now, if you can see, the lip is flipped upwards because I am planning on actually laying down the base coat and the clear on these ends before flipping it and doing the rest of the lip. I tried thinking about how else I would do it, but it just didn't make sense. Basically, if I were to paint the whole lip first and then flip it over, I would have to wait for it to completely cure because, as you can see, it's sitting on the actual paint itself. So I have to knock out these ends first before I can flip it over and do that. So it's gonna be a little bit of a longer process, but it's gonna be done right. And again, I've come this far, so I need to actually finish it, finish strong. So I'm gonna grab the base coat. I have it soaking in the warm water right now. We're gonna shake it up and start on this side over here, flip it over here, and then do a couple coats, give it some time, then hit it with some clear, and then we will be able to get to the cool part of this video, finally. That's red. All right, so it's been about 20 minutes or so I think we're ready to start shooting some clear. We are gonna tack down the base coat with a little tack cloth here. Basically, you'll know if the base coat's dry. If you take the tack cloth and if it leaves a mark, then it's not dry yet, but it's obviously dry, feeling really smooth. We just tacked it down. So I got my face mask here we're gonna put on, just like this. I sound probably a little muffled right now. And we're gonna go ahead and shoot the first coat of clear. So like I said, I'll probably start with the edge work first and kind of start boxing it in here around the outside because that's where I always forget to do. So do the back side, do this side, then we'll start knocking out the middle. So we're gonna do a really light coat for the first coat of base coat. then probably do a heavier second and kind of see where we're at there and possibly hit it with a third. All right, so I just sprayed the first coat and I realized that I wasn't filming on the GoPro, so I only got that on the camera over there. Oh well. Neighbors knocked on my door, went out there. It's the neighbor kids. They were selling rocks. They said they would sell me 3 rocks for $1. And I took them up on that deal because I thought it was pretty good. And then they asked me, are you a YouTuber? And I was like, I make some videos. And they were like, oh my gosh. And they looked at each other and they're like, how many subscribers do you have? And I told them at this time, if you're watching this, I have 53,000. And I said that and they just lost it. And it was just super cute and super funny. And I wish them the best luck in their rock business. So hopefully if you guys are watching this, that just came to my door. Hopefully you guys are entrepreneurs and have made a lot of money selling rocks. So anyway, that was the first coat. Like I said, we'll come back through, do a heavier second coat. I might tack this down and let it dry for a little bit just to remove any extra dust. But so far, so good. I'm not seeing anything out of the usual here. So I think we're gonna be pretty golden. All right, so what I'm realizing is that the whole painting vlogs aren't really that exciting and that fun. I don't even know how long this is at this point, but basically this is just a really tedious thing. So now I realize why I didn't film the last one completely because it is just so tedious and boring. So anyways, we're gonna tack this down really quick. This is feeling nice and smooth. Give you guys an idea here. Here's after the third shot of base coat here. So it is all one color, which looks pretty awesome. So for people that are new to painting or have never done anything like this before in their garage, you can't just stop here. I mean, technically you can, but you shouldn't. You should always clear coat your base coat. And so sometimes your base coat will have clear in it and it'll be a single stage kind of situation to where it'll have some UV protection. But this right here, as it stands, after a couple months, this thing would start to look pink. It wouldn't look red anymore. So you have to have a clear coat because that's where all of your UV protection is. And of course your physical protection as well. So like rocks and things like that will chip up things, but having some extra clear there will give you more of a protective barrier. And so, like I said before, on the first lip I painted, I did not put a ton of clear on there. I put maybe a coat, maybe 2 coats of clear on there because I didn't really have enough to do the job in the first place. And so within, I would say, a couple weeks, I was already having rock chips and all sorts of crazy stuff. And then eventually it led to clear coat failure. So the idea here is that we're gonna go pretty heavy on the clear. I'm gonna use quite a bit of that can to kind of get this to where it's heavily laid on, but avoid drips. So first coat's gonna be relatively light, second coat is gonna be relatively light, and then the third, probably medium, and then I'm gonna try to go for a fourth coat, but we'll see if we have any runs or drips or anything like that. And so this is where everything ties together. Like it looks this way for a minute here, but give it, wait till the clear coat, this will look like a completely different lip. It's gonna look freaking brand new. So, all right, wish me luck. All right, and that's it. That's the last coat. So this thing is looking freaking wet. It's looking really, really good. Literally wet. So I want to kind of be careful around it. But one thing I noticed on the last heavy coat, I got one little piece of, I don't know, dust. But it's above the clear, and it's just kind of nestling right there. So I'm just gonna leave it, let it dry, and then obviously when I finish it out and I wet sand it, that will be removed. But other than that though, it looks really, really good. I would say at this point, I could just call it good and throw it on the car and be happy with it. But I do want to wet sand it here in a week or two. And so I'm not going to wet sand it off the car. I'm actually going to wet sand it on the car. It's going to be a little bit easier because it'll be all mounted up. So I'm going to mount it, wet sand it, polish it all out, and it'll look really, really good. So yeah, that looks pretty awesome, guys. I'm pretty stoked on that. So obviously you can see on the camera, it looks a lot more, I guess, glassed out. It looks a lot more wet than it did before. So anyways, I'm gonna go change, obviously get out of these clothes, start the cleanup. I'm gonna let that dry over on those stands over there overnight, and then we're gonna install it tomorrow. So anyways, guys, I will catch you guys tomorrow. See ya. All right, guys, so instead of a day later, it's roughly a week later. The weather was pretty crappy last week, so I didn't get a chance to install the lip, but hey, it did give it more time to cure, and looking at it right now, it looks freaking awesome. I am so pumped on this job. I'm telling you, that little bit of experience that I gained from my previous painting session really paid off. And this thing really does look amazing. It does look OEM, and I cannot wait to get it on the Civic here. So I got the Civic pulled up here at a little bit of an angle so I can remove the old lip as well as install the new lip. Now what's different about this one is that the old lip, it's kind of hard to tell, it's only got a couple different mounting points. You have your sides on both sides of the bumper there, and then I have a couple screws underneath there to hold it up from sagging down in the middle. So I'm gonna be removing that and then getting this lined up to install. And so I do have all new U-clips to go along the bottom there, so this should be a really flush install. Now there's one last thing I need to do to this lip before we can get it on the car, and I'm gonna show you that right now. All right, so at this point, you know, I'm all about the little details, so I picked up this right here. This is an OEM Honda front or rear lip gasket. So this is going to go between the front lip and the bumper to create a perfectly seamless connection to the two pieces. This will prevent water buildup below the lip and all that stuff. And so it's just a really finite touch that you can add to the whole process. And what's cool is that you can add this to pretty much anything. You can add this to an eBay lip, you can add this to a cool carbon rep lip, you can add this to an OEM lip, whatever you want to do. It's just an extra gasket to help bring those two together. So I wish I would have installed it on this one right here, but oh well, live and learn. So I got it for the OEM lip, and if you're interested in picking up one of these for yourself, and again, it is an OEM Honda part. I will link it down in the description below. So we're gonna go ahead and install this on the back side of this lip here using the 3M tape that it already has. Once we do that, we'll be ready to mount it. All right, so before we put it on, I want to prep the surface. I'm going to take a little isopropyl alcohol here and a towel, and we're going to be wiping the back side of this and getting rid of a lot of that old dust I had on there from painting. So once we clear this off, it'll stick nice and flush. So I'm going to pull a bit off at a time and then just kind of line it up. And then kind of just start guiding it and sticking it on there. What's also kind of nice about this too is that if you have any kind of rough edge work where you've painted, or maybe you have like a piece that's chipping or something like that, this is going to cover it up too. So it's also not going to subject that area from failing or chipping or anything like that, because you'll have a little bit of extra protection here on that top ridge, which is typically where you'll have chips and failure of paint and stuff like that. So yeah, this is kind of tedious, but you're just pretty much just pulling a little bit off at a time and then just kind of guiding it on there, and it's actually really not that painful. It's pretty easy to do. It's done. I'm gonna probably cut that right there, and we'll stretch it out to the end there. So I'll show you guys what that looks like out in the sun here. I mean, that looks about as OEM as you could possibly want, man. That looks super, super good. And I'll add a nice little black accent too between where the lip and the bumper meet. All right, so I think that's enough gawking. I think it's time to remove the old lip and put this new Minty Fresh lip on. Let's do it. All right, well, that's it. Man, look how naked that looks. It almost just doesn't look right without seeing a front lip on there. That looks probably 10 times less aggressive. Yeah, something, like I said, doesn't look like my car. It's just kind of strange. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna clean up all this extra crap that was hidden underneath that lip for all those years. Clean it up, I actually just polish it out really, really quick, and then prepare it for the new lip. So let's do it. so I'm gonna walk you through the process here because this is gonna be the part where you guys won't be able to really see. So I'm just gonna kind of tell you what I'm gonna do, and then the lip will be magically installed. So basically underneath here, crawl underneath here, you'll see that you already have some areas on the bottom of the OEM front bumper where the lip can match up. Now what I'm gonna do is take these little U-clips right here and one of these little bolts, and I'm going to simply slide this in, bring in the bottom lip right here with a little washer and a lock, come up right through the bottom, and then lock that in place. All right, so my life's a mess right now, but good news is that I just went to the auto parts store and I was able to get a longer bolt here, so this solved my problem. Are you freaking kidding me? They literally gypped me out of threading on that bolt? Okay, so this is what we need. So this is an inch long. So we were rocking with a 1/2 inch earlier and it just wasn't long enough to grab the threads. So I went to an inch, backing it up with a washer here, just like this. That slides in, and we were good to go to lock the bottom up, and it's a perfect fitment with those U-clips. So anyways, we're gonna get the rest of these clips on, and this thing should be good to go. Yes, it is on, and it is on right. I am so pumped with the fitment of this lip. I know it's OEM, and I know it should be perfect, but just the fact that everything lined up, I'm just super happy about. And so basically I have all 4 screws on each corner there, as well as every single bolt and U-clip underneath the bottom. So this thing isn't going anywhere. This thing is definitely secure. So now's the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and pull this thing out in the sunlight and see how well that color match is. I freaking love this car. I know it's just a Honda Civic, but I mean, I freaking love this Civic. Guys, look how good that color match was. Seriously, that looks like a brand new, from the factory, OEM lip. That black gasketing on there looks absolutely OEM. This looks, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but wow, I'm just amazed at how well that turned out for a rattle can spray paint job. I wish I would have done that good on the door. Seriously, this looks so good. I'm so pumped on this. So pumped. Well, what do you guys think? Do you guys like this lip? Do you guys like the old eBay lip? Let me know down in the comments. This looks great. So that's it, guys, from start to finish. A used and abused lip to a brand new looking lip. Pretty crazy. So anyways, guys, this is a long video. I did have fun doing this. It was a lot of work to do. Most people would probably just take it down to a shop and call it good, but it feels so good to know that I did it myself and to have this type of result. So as I said before, I'm going to link everything that I used or everything that I could find down in the description if you want to tackle a project like this for yourself. It is fun, it is rewarding, and I think that you'll get a good result if you follow the same process that I did. So anyways, stick around for the beauty shots after the video. Make sure to give me a big thumbs up if you guys like this. Subscribe down below for more Civic content. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Solid Anthony. Peace.